Hi, I'm Pastor Linda Glantz, and I've teamed up with my colleague and friend, Pastor Ron Palmer, for a series of 6 podcasts for the season of Lent. It follows along with our sermon series, The Apostle Peter and Me, where we talk about the Apostle Peter and the ups and downs of Peter's faith as he came to become a disciple of Jesus. So I'm glad you could join us today, and I hope that our conversation is meaningful for you. So let's get started. Hey, Ron, good to be back with you again.
It's always a pleasure.
Another week in Lent is passing us by. This is really going by fast for me. I don't know about you, but this has been really fun to do.
Yeah.
I think so often as pastors, we get caught up in what we need to write, and it's always something we do by ourselves.
Yeah.
And so having this opportunity to talk through some of this has really been good for me too. So thank you for that.
Yeah. Well, thank you. The different perspectives, and as you said, being able to talk through it. The number of ideas and things that we get and pass between each other really enhances and hopefully strengthens our congregations. The people we love.
And anybody else who gets a hold of these
Absolutely.
videos.
Absolutely. Yep.
Well, last time that we were together, we talked about it's really a sad story about Peter's denial. Mm-hmm. And so this week I thought we'd go and find out how Peter was redeemed from all of that. Mm-hmm. And we have to, I think, start back to after the resurrection. The disciples are, they're still scared, and they're kind of huddled together in the upper room, and they don't know what to do. They just don't know what to do. And all of a sudden, Jesus appears in the room with them.
Yeah.
I can't imagine what that must have been like. And even for Peter, who he just watched the death of, the person he loved, and suddenly he's alive. I mean, that whole experience has to be, and that's not really what we're here to talk about today, but so we got.
But I absolutely love the setup for that, in that John goes into detail that the door was locked.
The door was locked. Yep.
That just gives me, the shivers. It's just like there isn't anything that's going to keep Christ from us.
No, not only that, but what does Peter say to them? Peace be with you.
Yes.
Calm down, everybody. It's going to be okay, right?
Yeah.
So then there's a second incident after that, because in the first one, there was one of those disciples was missing in that group, and it was Thomas.
Yeah.
And Thomas was told that Peter had appeared, and he's like, well, I'm not buying this. I want to see this for myself, or I'm not going to believe it, So then we have the second incident where they're gathered again, and Jesus comes in again and gives Thomas the opportunity to, touch his hands.
Place his fingers in the nail holes. Yeah.
Yeah. I
Thomas, can't. What does Thomas say? My Lord and my God.
My God, my Lord and my God. I know.
Yeah.
But then Jesus says, because you have seen me, you have believed. Mm-hmm. And blessed are those who believe and who have not seen.
Yes. Yeah.
And then we have a period of time that I don't think any of the Gospels really say how long between that incident and in the very next chapter of John, we have the story really of Peter's redemption. Mm-hmm. Yep. Okay, so there they are, and now what do we do?
Well, and that's the whole thing. I mean, as humanity, each of us, we can identify with this. What do we do when we failed someone? We go back to what we know. We go backwards and to some place that's safe, that it's like, oh, what do we do? They went fishing.
You find, I think, even when you have ecstatic good news, I think as human beings, we still, when we don't know what to do with it, we go back to something that's very familiar, because we have to find a way to relate to it. And the only way to do that is really to go back to what we know, that we can put something into perspective. So Peter and his brother and some other disciples have said, well, we're going to go fishing. So out they go. And it's nighttime and they haven't caught anything.
And isn't this just like Jesus to recreate the very first time? I mean, I can just see myself. It's nighttime. I've got just a loincloth. It's hot, and the water is just still. And what little bit you can hear the slapping up against the boat, I'm running my fingers through the water and just kicking myself.
Well, even going back to the fact that they still have to, like, we know that Peter had a family. He still has to provide for his family.
Yeah.
He hasn't escaped any of that. He's got a wife, he's got sisters, he's got a mother-in-law, he's got probably got kids, what do we know, right? Yeah. And so he's got to go back to his life before, in a sense. He's still got to do those things. And so they go out into this boat and they're out all night and they haven't caught anything. So they got to be really on a down and out. I mean, because they still got to pay their bills. They still have Roman taxes, right, that they've got to deal with. Yeah. And so early in the morning, it says Jesus stood on the shore, but the disciples didn't realize that it was him. And he calls out to them.
Amen. Man, that's just.
He calls out to them.
Yeah.
And that's just amazing to me. They didn't even recognize really who he was. He just said, friends, have you caught any fish? And they're like, nope.
Yeah.
And then he tells them, go ahead and go back out there and try again, throw your net over the other side of the boat, go out in the deep water.
Yeah.
And amazingly enough, even though they're apprehensive, they go ahead and they do that. And the miracle happens. They come in with more fish than they know what to do with.
Yep. And then there's that moment. That perfect love and that recreation. And the words, I love, it should be italicized. It is the Lord, with an exclamation point.
Yeah. And I think oftentimes, like these disciples, they're trying to do things on their own.
Yep.
And it wasn't until Jesus was there that something happened.
Yep.
We try to do so much on our own without bringing Christ into it. We do it in our churches. We do it in our own lives. You just go on and you do things and Christ isn't participating because you haven't invited him. And instead of waiting for that invitation from Jesus, from you or from me, he calls out, and then amazing things happen.
And we recognize that voice.
We do.
And Peter just, I love this. He leaves the net, or he just jumps in the water. and I'm sure that, as he was swimming in, he was apprehensive. He wanted to see him, but he was ashamed, and I don't know about you, but I get teared up, and I can imagine the salt water mingling with my tears, just making my way into the shore and then walking up very timidly.
It's like watching the child, coming out of the beach water after, and his father standing there with open arms waiting for him. Instead, though, Jesus is cooking breakfast, right? He's cooking breakfast. Bring your fish. We're going to cook. We're going to eat together.
Yeah.
So they share this meal together because they broke bread together. They ate the fish together, which again, you can relate that back to the feeding of the 5,000. We could bring all this stuff in here. But they finish eating, and Jesus says to Simon Peter, Simon, son of John, do you love me more than these?
Yes.
Peter's like, yeah, well, of course I do. How could you think anything different, right? You know I love you.
Okay.
That isn't enough, though. Jesus says, Simon, son of John, do you love me? Feed my sheep, feed my lambs. He goes through this 3 times.
Okay.
And it dawns on Simon Peter, I think, at one point, and all this, what's happened.
Yes.
Jesus it's all grace. And it reminds me of the same thing, that it's that repentance, redemption, going all the way back to him being a follower of John the Baptist.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And the other part of that too is, I don't know about you, but I've handled things poorly in my life.
Haven't we all?
From time to time. Well, I was struck by what Jesus didn't say. He didn't say, Peter, you're quite the coward. He didn't say,
You screwed up.
You were a big man, a fine disciple. You turned out to be. He didn't bring that and throw it, in his face. He was there in love, and it just, what a picture of redemption, but what a picture of an example for us in love. It's just, I I had a time when I just started course of study, and I felt the call and I'd been an executive manager. I was, I'd managed people. I had a bunch of people work for me. I had I've been sales and done all these things. And I ended up in a dealership, and it was a local dealership. And I had a sales team, and I was sitting, and I was working in my office, and in that office, there was a window. I could see the sales floor, and I could see everything that was going on. And boy, I was busy. I was just busy. This young lady that I had heard about, and I'd been praying for, from our church, had gotten diagnosed with an incurable cancer. As I sat there, I was working, and I was so intent on my computer, and all at once it was like the thought just came through: you need to talk. You need to talk to June. You need to talk to this young lady. Now, this is right out of the blue. I'm like, what? And I said, yeah, okay. And I'm working. And I looked up, and I saw her go into one of the salespeople's office, and I said, I'll go out in a second. And I kept working because I was busy. I had things to do. I couldn't, I'll get there. And I got lost in it. And it was almost kind of crazy, but it's almost like something just took my chin, and I looked out, and here this girl came out of that office, and she stood there, and she just looked around the sales floor. And it was like, okay, I have to go. I'm supposed to go. And I didn't go. And after she left, a couple days later, one of the ladies from the church came in and said that she had really taken a turn for the worst, and that and I felt horrible, because I know that I was told that I was supposed to say something to this young lady. I wasn't sure what it was when I was to get there, but the Lord would have given me the words, and I'm sure it would have to do with facing eternity. So it was like, okay, I'm going to call her husband, and I'm going to go. I'm going to go over in a couple of days. And it wasn't only the next day I got a call that she had passed into eternity. I was devastated, in that I didn't take that opportunity. I missed that opportunity. And don't you know that, because I read through the Bible most every year, and the timing of this John chapter 21 was right in my devotions. And I had that in my lap, and I'm reading it. And it was like I was standing on that beach. And Jesus didn't say, "You coward. You didn't get up and you didn't go." He said, "Ron, feed my sheep. Feed my sheep." Ever since that time, I have prayed in the morning when I get up, "Lord, don't let me miss even one opportunity to share your love. It isn't about me, but help me to be the man that you'd have me to be, and tell people when you call me to open my mouth." But he said, "Feed my sheep." I did find out after the fact, and talking with Carolyn, one of the ladies at the church at the funeral, she said, I got up and I got a chance to talk to her, and she accepted Christ just before she died. But it was one of those things that there are different accounts in the Bible that mean things to me, but this means a lot to me in my failure, and how much he loves us, that he reinstates us even after we fail. We can feel that fire on that beach. We can smell that fish. And boy, when you can look into the eyes of the Savior and all you see is love,
I think
it changes you.
It does. And I think most of us, if we really think hard, can find our missed opportunities.
Yes.
When we've just ignored that still small voice inside.
Yeah.
I could tell you a few myself, Ron. So I feel you. I feel you. I really do. And I feel for Peter.
Yes, absolutely.
Not only for the whole sense of remorse, but for the joy and the recognition that in spite of it all, he's loved. And that's really the bottom line here. In spite of it, everything that we do,
yep,
we are still accepted. We are still loved. And it's like, we don't let go sometimes of these things, but God says, let go.
Yep.
He tells you to let go. And if it isn't our voice, he'll find another. And just like this woman did, come to know Jesus before she died, he'll take care of it. He'll take care of it.
And the lessons that we learn as we go, because we're on a journey, we're always working through this. And again, because it's the specific time of year in the Lenten, in the time of Lent, that we reflect on these things, and we reinforce the fact that we just don't accept Christ and sit there like a bump on a log, that we accept Christ and we move forward and we feed his sheep.
Yeah, and also knowing that it's really not about the head knowledge.
Yep.
It has to become a part of transforming us right down to our soul. It transforms our personalities, our character, the whole 9 yards.
Yep.
As we go through this journey, just as it did Peter. Peter didn't get it right in the beginning. He didn't get it halfway through. Yep. And even when he did get it, he'd fall back. And I think that really describes us too, just the same. Mm-hmm. But the next time that we get together, Ron, we've got one more of our podcasts to do together, and we'll get a chance to talk about after Jesus was gone back up into heaven, what happened to Peter? What did Peter do with all this that he had gone through? So we're going to
can't wait to talk about it.
I know there's a whole lot to that. And so we'll get in a little bit into the book of Acts, and of course the two books that Peter wrote, 1st and 2nd Peter in the New Testament. So I'm looking forward to that. And I hope you are too.
I am.
Perfect. Well, thank you for today, and I'm looking forward to next time.
Always fun. Yep.
Thanks, Ron. Bye for
Bye-bye.
now.
Yep.
Well, I'd like to thank you for joining with Pastor Ron and me this week for our podcast. I hope it inspired you to consider where you are in your faith journey, with the understanding that the story of the Apostle Peter is oftentimes very much like our own story. And I hope you'll tune in next week for the next podcast in this series, right through the season of Lent. I hope you will also like us on Facebook, subscribe to our Disciples First YouTube channel, or even visit us on our website at disciplesfirst.com. And we'll see you next time. Have a great day.